the past 3 years, he served as Commander-in-Chief of the Republic of Korea and United States forces that keep this country free. This Thursday, that will end when General William J. Livsey passes the colors of the United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, to his successor, General Louis Minnitre. Recounting the previous 36 months as well as 36 years of military history, AFKN presents A Soldier Says Goodbye, an interview with General William J. Livsey. Here's AFKN's George McNamara.
Hello and welcome to our program. Our guest really doesn't need any introduction. He's General William Livsey, Commander-in-Chief, United Nations Command and the Combined Forces Command, and the commander of USFK and 8th Army. Over the last 3 years and a couple months, sir, I guess we've really grown accustomed to your face, and it's just a short matter of time before you'll be leaving us here, and we really appreciate what you've done for us in guiding our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines these last 3 years.
George, I call him George. You know, Sergeant McNamara and I have known each other a long time. But let me tell you, George, I really appreciate what AFKN does every day for our people here in the Republic. One of the things that's sort of become a joke around here is my face on AFKN. I guess there are a couple of things I'd like to say about that before you get into any questions. On the one hand, I never seek to be on AFKN, and you guys always got that camera in my face and so forth, and sometimes I joke with you about too much exposure. On the other hand, and I think this is the important thing, AFKN provides me an opportunity to talk to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, their families, dependents, children, and it's a wonderful thing for me to be able to do that because I just can't get to everywhere I want to go. So I deeply appreciate what all of you have done over the last 3 years. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, we've had fun covering stories about you, sir, and one thing that I guess we could say is that you have more time in country here than a lot of us combined here in being in the Korean War, fighting in the Korean War. Your first days in Korea back as a second lieutenant here, how did you get here, sir, and what were your feelings at the time, and what did you see then about Korea's future as you see it now?
Well, let me try and make this thing short as I can. How I got here was kind of simple. I went to North Georgia College to play baseball. Couldn't hit a curveball very well. Thought I'd play some professional baseball. Got into the ROTC. The Korean War came. I thought I was good. Couldn't hit the curveball. Thought I'd coach, but they commissioned me and said, "Hie thee to Korea," and it all happened very quickly. Of course, I got some schooling and stuff. But all that's relatively unimportant. I guess when you talk about Korea at those times, you got to remember when you reflect on war stories, and that's a long time ago, 35 years. You have to watch it. You don't embellish things and stuff like that. I guess one thing I should say is I had my platoon sergeant come to see me when I was a two-star down at Fort Benning. He and I had a drink or so, and the good news is he told the same war stories I did, and my wife said, "Boy, Livsey, your credibility is really going up." But when you think back on this peninsula in those days, I guess the most vivid memory of Korea is no trees. Trees were all gone. Trees were gone for lots of reasons. Maybe some of the timber beforehand had been taken to other countries, but war devastates. Artillery had devastated the trees, and we had cut trees to make bunkers and all that kind of stuff. So it was a desolate place. And what I kind of like to say is it's like when you look at Seoul in this beautiful country now, it's sort of like a phoenix that's risen from the ashes. Those were sort of the first impressions I had.
When you think back to that time, everything was gone. It was really an intense conflict. And the lessons learned must have been immense. What kind of lessons did you learn then and how have they gone about with your position now as commanding general? How do they play a
Well,
role?
you know, I've talked a lot about our soldiers since I've been here, and when I say that on this program, you must always read all the people of the armed forces, and we joke sometimes because I say soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and people want me to say Marines, sailors, airmen, and soldiers. But I guess what I learned quickly was that you can trust American soldiers. You can trust them to sort of do what's right when the going gets tough. And I learned that very quickly, but I also learned those things that I've been talking to people about for the last 3 years here. I learned about courage. I learned about all of that, but I learned about confidence, and I learned that if the soldiers are going to have courage and do all those things that we expect them to do, they got to have confidence in their leadership. I also learned it's all right to be scared. I learned it's okay to be frightened, so long as you don't let that kind of thing interfere with the kind of confidence and leadership it takes to cause soldiers to be able to go up a hill. So I guess early on was sort of my stage was set for my great love and respect for American soldiers doing what they thought was right. Mm-hmm. That happened early on.
You talked about the soldiers then. What about the soldiers now? Between the two, comparisons, similarities, differences. What do you see as the strong points, the weak points? Where do they compare?
I think that you all have heard me say many times, I would never tell you this if I didn't honestly believe it. The great love that I've had for my soldiers over the years, you should never try to say one is better than the other, but I would have to say to you with all the candor that I can muster that I think the United States Army in the field today is the best Army we've ever had. I think you can just tangibly point to that in so many ways. You know, I could dazzle you with some statistics if you wanted that. We've had less AWOLs, less desertions, crime rates are down, drug usage is down, but that's not what you always measure is their readiness to do what's right and their readiness to be able to fulfill a mission. And I have to check that, and I check that on a continuing basis. And I tell you, I like what I see. We mess things up every day in little ways, you know, and we don't always do as well as we should. You know, I'm a bug on trying to not waste taxpayers' money. I don't want to do that. And every now and then you have to remind soldiers, boy, what you're doing is you're wasting my money and yours. So if you balance that kind of stuff and point them in the right direction, they'll do it. They'll do it fine.
One of the things we have to do as soldiers here is to be ready for war, because you never really know what's going to happen. You've seen combat. Your perspective on combat as being a second lieutenant in the Korean War, and how that compares to now as you're in charge of the forces which are going to protect the 40 million people here in Korea. What have you learned from those experiences as combat as it plays to today?
The thing that you learn most of all is that war is really bad. Mm-hmm. War is horrible. And the thing that you learn most of all is that those people that have witnessed that kind of carnage and stuff like that, it may change you forever. So the thing that I would say more than anything else is what you want to do is just stay very, very strong and make sure that we are honest in what we say we can do, and then articulate that in the kind of way that would tell anybody, don't mess with us. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've tried to do here. The last thing I would ever want is to see anybody hurt. So my whole raison d'etre is to make sure that people understand that we're strong, but that we're not going to take any stuff. So mm-hmm. that's the message that I have for our friends up north.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say we, we're saying U.S. and Korean
I'm
forces,
saying-
United Nations Command.
I'm saying the Combined Forces Command / United Nations Command. You got to remember that the U.S. Forces Korea is very important, but we're small. We're 40,000. This command is huge. It's large, and we're only a small portion. However, we are a very, very significant portion of that. But I have trouble getting people in Washington to understand what I'm talking about combined operations. We're not some kind of side-by-side thing. There's no little sector of the front that's uniquely U.S. It's an integrated, combined way to use combat power that we're after here. And I'll tell you one thing. In this last Team Spirit exercise, we demonstrated that. With all the egotism I could muster, I said this is the best exercise in the history of warfare. And I'm convinced I'm right, and I'm willing to let anybody audit trail that and see if they can come up with a better one.
Let's talk about that combined effort. Let's talk about the largest portion that represents the Korean forces. We've got the ROK Army and Air Force, Navy, Marines, and we also have the Katusas. What has happened to them, as you've seen, how they evolved to be the fighting force that they are today?
You talking about? Well, let's talk about the ROK forces first. They've evolved in sort of the best kind of way militarily. They had some troubles initially in the Korean War, and it stemmed from, at that time, from equipment, organization, training, but they learned very, very quickly. And they learned a lot from U.S. forces, and then they have their own innovative way of doing things, just like Americans. A Korean soldier is a very innovative soldier. So starting with that, they got or started a very logical force improvement program like we have. Today, the Republic of Korea armed forces are formidable. And when you put them in the combined configuration with U.S. forces, and the hard word to get some people to understand is what you try to do with combined forces is to look for ways to complement each other. And that's what we've tried to do with the combined forces. So I would tell anyone listening that the Korean forces are really tough. And what we've tried to do is take their strengths and weaknesses and look at them, and take our strengths and weaknesses and look at them, and when we put them in a combined way, try to complement each other, and we're good. Now the Katusa is, I mentioned, we had Katusas when I was here in the Korean War. Katusa soldier, like the maturation of this nation coming out of the ashes, Katusa soldiers just improved. The educational levels improved, their skill levels improved. They're a vital part of the force structure of 8th United States Army. I've had to try to tell people in Washington that. I've had to tell people in the Ministry of National Defense that. They're interwoven into our force structure. They play a vital role here. So if you talk about the Katusas, we have to make sure that we use their talents in the right places. We haven't always done that as well as we should. We're doing a better job now, and I'm very, very pleased with the strength of the Katusa soldiers.
You've been here, sir, now just a little bit more than 3 years, and a lot has taken place in those 3 years. Changes that you've seen. Let's talk first about the change as into the threat from North Korea. What is it like?
Well, I can summarize this quickly for you because I've done this a number of times on AFKN. We watch that carefully, and the sizes have increased. The numbers of soldiers in the North Korean forces increased. The number of airplanes have increased. The number of ships have increased. You take that and the fact that they reorganized and came down much closer to the DMZ, underground. Most of their facilities are underground. So they postured themselves very close to the militarized zone. We come back and talk about the DMZ later if you want to. But what I look at when I see the North Korean armed forces as an offensively oriented force structure. So, very formidable force, have modernized. They have some great faults, but they modernized their force quite a bit. And that's why we have to keep looking north all the time, and that's our job. Our job is like the mission of the Combined Forces Command, just gleams like a beacon in the night. It's stop war. And how do you stop war? Be ready for war. Just be ready. Look north and be ready.
Well, I guess when we look north, the first place that we see is the DMZ. You mentioned that just in your last statement. What changes have we seen along the DMZ? What are the keys that we look for now?
Let me tell you what I say about the DMZ. First of all, it's the biggest misnomer in the whole world. There's nothing D about that MZ. It's the militarized zone. That's what it is. And, it started out, George, it really started out sort of as a demilitarized zone. We stopped shooting at each other at 2200 hours on the 27th of July, 1953. And we were all directed to do an about face and walk 2 kilometers to the rear. We all did that. They did that and we did that. And that's how you got that very irregular 4-kilometer buffer zone. We, the United Nations Command, pulled back and they pulled back, and we thought we had a DMZ. And then over the years, they gradually started putting arms back in the DMZ and going back to some of the more significant pieces of the terrain. You can't sit there and let that happen. So you have to do something about that. So over the years, the, quote, DMZ became a highly militarized zone. And over the years, there have been incidents in the DMZ. And that's one of the great concerns that we always have now. I'm for every way that imaginable of trying to keep tensions down. And that's why I tell our people, follow your rules of engagement up there. Don't do anything that's wrong or provocative. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm never going to put my soldiers at risk. They have the authority to do what's necessary to protect themselves. It's changed, and we are always ready to talk about ways of making that less of a DMZ, less of an MZ. But whatever we do has to be honest and it has to be verifiable. When we go to the Military Armistice Commission, we're willing to listen to proposals that are verifiable, but not rhetoric.
Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about how we stack up against them, how they stack up against us in terms of warfighting capabilities.
The way I say this, so that my Korean friends understand it, is I say, "걱정 하지 마세요." That means don't worry. See, when I say don't worry, that means we can handle the situation. We got great confidence that we can handle the situation. At the same time, I would not sit here and tell you it won't be a tough situation. It will be. But people interpret things wrong. When I say, don't worry, somebody says, well, that means we don't have to worry about that anymore. We don't have to keep putting resources into our defense. That's wrong. We do have to keep putting resources into our defensive posture. The Korean government must continue to put resources in. The United States of America must do that. You see, I have to admit all kinds of prejudices and biases about all this. But see, I think the Republic of Korea is a great success story for the United States of America. I think it's a place in the world you can say that we drew a line in the dirt and said, communism stops here. And we've lived up to that. And it's not easy to keep putting the resources in that'll make that thing stay the way it ought to stay. You know, it costs both of our governments a lot. When the U.S. congressmen come here and people like that, I try to explain that. But it's a costly operation. Peace, you know, peace and stability, freedom has never been cheap. It's never been cheap in terms of dollars. It's never been cheap in terms of blood.
Let's talk about that combined effort, the Republic of Korea and the United States. In terms of our major strengths as a combined command, what are they?
Just that is that if you're truly combined, you've got a command and a control system that will allow you to concentrate your combat power. All any commander could ever hope to do is put the bulk of his combat power at the time and place of his choosing, at the greatest cost to whoever he has to go against, at the least cost to his own forces. We've worked that harder than anything else. And you do that through a command and control system that will allow you to synchronize your combat power and put it where you want to. Synchronize your air, land, sea power. We demonstrate that in team spirit. I tell you, we did it superbly.
But even though we do all this training, even though we have all these exercises, I'm sure there's still some areas that we still need to work on as a command.
Well, I'm not going to be dumb enough to sit here and outline all of my deficiencies and weaknesses. That's like you know, you're asking me. It's like for some football coaches goes out and tells his opponents for the next week where all his vulnerabilities are. No, I don't think. I can just tell you that we're not 100%. We got a lot of things we want to work on. It gets to be an interesting kind of situation because as good as we are, we got some holes in our capability that we need to fill. And what I'd like to do is do those kind of things, fill those holes at the least cost in terms of resources, and that's what we try to do.
It's been a long time since there's been war on this peninsula. Our main objective as a combined command is to deter war. Why, after over 3 decades, do we still feel that the North Korean is that much of an aggressive force where we still have to be ready to fight if necessary?
Yeah. Okay, Georgia, on the first point, you're 100% correct. Our job is to deter war. Our job is to try to keep anybody from getting hurt. Now, why do we think it's necessary to be so prepared? Why do we think the North Koreans might attack after having been up there laying in the weeds for some 30-something years now? Well, as I described the threat to you, remember what I said. I said a couple of things. North Korea is a very closed country and a closed society. It's very difficult to find out what they're really thinking and what their real intentions are. So that just by nature makes them suspect. All the bad things that they've done over the years since the war make them look aggressive to us. But the important thing is that when you analyze their force structure, and I outlined to you how they're organized and what they've been doing, their force structure is offensive in nature. And you know, I wished I could tell you that when you look at their force structure and the way their Army, Navy, and Marine forces are postured and organized, that they're defensive. When I look at it, I got to conclude it's offensive in nature. When we have a few ways of finding out what their training is, they sort of train that way. So that's why we have to be prepared. That's why we're not sure. That's why we're always suspect of the North Koreans.
Now, speaking of that training aspect, it's something we do here on a daily basis.
That's right.
Training is our key to being ready. One of the ways that we train is through exercises.
Yeah.
And our main exercise is team spirit. And you keyed in on it a little bit earlier as to how successful this team spirit was and how pleased you were What about this year's exercise? What made it so successful?
First of all, let me back off and say that, yeah, I think team spirit is the most visible exercise we do. What I would like everybody to understand is that we just try to maintain the right kind of deterrence in terms of combat readiness 365 days a year. So no one should think that only during team spirit are we sort of, quote, ready. We're ready all the time, and we've got other exercises that are carefully designed to make sure that we keep our readiness. Last year's team spirit was the best exercise I've ever seen in demonstrating command and control. I think I told you before, the military force that will win will be the one where the commander in charge can take his combat power and put it where he wants it at a time and place of his choosing, at the least cost to himself and the greatest cost to the other outfit involved. We did that better in team spirit than I've ever seen it done anywhere. In fact, I would challenge anybody to show it that it's ever been done better in the history of warfare. What that means is that you've got to have great connectivity among your component commands. Your ground, air, Navy, Marine forces all have to be tied together and respond in a concerted way. That's why I said team spirit was the best ever. You might find some isolated event in another team spirit of years past where somebody did something that was really great, but I'm talking about looking at it across the board.
And it not only gives the soldiers a chance to work with each other in the field, but it brings out that command aspect with the ROC and U.S. forces operating as one.
Yeah, that's what you must remember. It's a combined command, and we don't. As I said, it's not a side-by-side command. It's an integrated command. And if you would just look at I can give you an example. Look at the ground force structure for the last team spirit, and you would find U.S. units under the operational control of ROC units, and you would find the same vice versa, and all working in a very, very coherent kind of fashion. Very professional. By the way, don't forget that we've always invited North Koreans to send down people to observe team spirit. We've always done that. The ROC government invites them to come down here and look at it. They've never invited us to go up and see their exercises.
That's one thing every year. We always hear the same thing also with MAC meetings that take place. The North Koreans always say that team spirit, these exercises, are an obstacle, that they're offensive in nature. How do you answer the criticism from their side?
The first thing I say is come see.
Mm-hmm.
See, I already said come see. You know, you're welcome. You can come and judge for yourself. That's the easiest way to answer that question. The other way that we always say is that all countries that got a military forces have to train. We got to train, and we're going to train, and we're going to keep a strong deterrent force. Going back to your question, we want the North Koreans to understand that we're strong, because we don't need any more war here. I think some of you may have read in the Stars and Stripes not long ago, somebody put a headline up there, Livsey's had enough of war, or something like that. I had enough of war the first few minutes, the first day. I've had enough of war for a long time. And one of the reasons that I think that I wear this uniform is to try to keep that from happening. So I want the North Koreans to understand we're strong. They better understand that.
Will we see more team spirits?
I see no change in the exercise program for the near future. I see no change in that. It's sort of business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Just business as usual.
I guess to really be ready, you know, we've heard you and on your spots and what we've seen about the physical fitness program, and you know, in reference to the hills in Korea and how they can just kind of do a job on you physically and mentally too. What's the importance of?
Well,
of
I learned as a 21-year-old second lieutenant, trying to attack up the hills in the Chorwan Valley, that just the physical. If you don't believe me, just go out there right now and start up one of those hills without people shooting at you. You know, just trying to get to the top, just physically trying to get to the top. But it's not just that, George. It's stamina. It's like guys that are working comm systems. You get sleepy and you're not alert. And the guys that are in the command and controls, the guys that are recycling aircraft and rearming aircraft, and the guys that are doing the thing on ships. It's stamina. And I think if you're in great physical condition, you know, you're going to have the kind of stamina that it takes. I've said that the lack of stamina or fatigue can get you killed in war about as quick as anything.
What about some of the other training keys? Individual unit? Are there any points that...
Yeah. What it is this whole business that I've sort of preached before I've been here. First of all, I will go back and tell all of you one more time. Let's go back to that physical conditioning one more time. Mm-hmm. It is true that these hills in the Republic of Korea will kick your butt. That's true. So don't ever let it. Second, back to the training business. Remember my 4 C's, and I talked about for a long time. Competence is really something, because if a soldier, sailor, airman, and marine can do what he's supposed to do in a competent manner, we don't have anything to worry about. Because remember what I've always said, the single greatest variable in war, in a lot of things, I say it's in war and like playing golf, particularly in putting, is confidence. If you got confidence, everything else is sort of easy. And that competence causes confidence. And so I would tell all of you that wear the uniform of our country what I've always said, you know, do your job. Take your little piece. Yeah, that's the best way to explain it. We all got a little piece of this action. Sometimes, you know, you say my piece of the thing is a little bigger than some others. But whatever it is you're going to do, if you're going to be a mechanic, you know, the M60A3 tank, be the best mechanic you can be. If you're going to work for AFKN and interview generals, do it the best you possibly can. And every soldier, sailor, airman, and marine, cooks, everybody's important. See, there's nobody that's not important out there. And that's what I've been trying to say, because if you know, it's just this network. It's great. It's like a tapestry. You know, everything's got to fit, and the strings have got to all be there. And if somebody doesn't do a job, it starts to unravel. It's like the old adage, for the want of a nail, the shoe is lost, and on and on and on and on.
Let's talk about your commanders for a second. Your staff, ROC and US, as one. What do you say to them in terms of mission accomplishment and taking care of their soldiers?
You know exactly what I say to them. Mm-hmm. 3 things. Do what you think's right every day. Take care of your soldiers, sailors, airmen, marines, and their family. And be ready to go to war. Mm-hmm. That's all.
3 simple statements?
3 simple statements. I got the best staff and commanders that anybody could be blessed with. You know, it's the truth. You know, the talent in our armed forces, ROC and US, is great, so you would expect that. But the only thing I ever worry about among my commanders and their staffs is continuity and institutionalization in the way we go about doing business. I must admit, being the eternal optimist that I am, that I even get very frustrated at having to recycle some things so many times because of turbulence. And you have a policy and a philosophy, and it's you're kind of dumb if you assume that it's internalized forever. You might have it for a while, but you got to keep going back and recycling it. The biggest problem with the military is turbulence, and particularly in a short tour theater like the Republic of Korea. Which leads me to a point, time for me to tell those civilians that work for the Armed Forces of the United States how much I appreciate what they do and how important they are to help with the continuity, because in lots of cases, you got civilians that stay put a lot longer than the military, the ones that are in uniform. Our civilian workforce is very, very good. And when I say civilian workforce, I mean both the Korean national workforce and the U.S. civilians that work. You know, I don't like to say work, for example, for the Army. I say, you know, I consider them a part of the Army just like I consider a person in uniform.
What about your NCOs here, sir? What do you say to them? What's their strong points?
What I say to my NCOs is, look what you did. You made Command Sergeant Major Bill Gates Sergeant Major of the Army. What a wonderful thing you've done. Mm-hmm. See, now, you have to go back and Bill Gates himself, Sergeant Major Gates, what a wonderful soldier he is. He himself, of course, has been soldiering for all these years, and the Army's going to be well served by that appointment. But Sergeant Major Gates would not have been Sergeant Major of the Army if he didn't have a very strong non-commissioned officer corps, not only in the 8th United States Army, but in U.S. Forces Korea. Because all the visitors come over here and they look and they see our non-commissioned officers. They're not going to appoint a Sergeant Major of the Army whose non-commissioned officer corps is not the finest. So I think that all of you non-commissioned officers should take great pride in what you've done, and in a way you are a great part of Sergeant Major Gates' appointment as Sergeant Major of the Army.
You've got June 25th coming up. I don't know if it was a selected day or
no,
twofold in terms of the change of command.
It really happened that way. Admiral Ron Hayes has to come out here, of course. Mm-hmm. He's one of my bosses. He should be here for that. When we started looking at the schedules, trying to get our schedules all together, the chairman of the ROC JCS, Admiral Hayes, and my schedule together, it just happened to be that day. But it is a significant day, and it's a day to remember. The day, the 25th of June, 1950, when communism thought that they could roll over this peninsula. And so I'm sort of happy that the change in command will be that day, because it'll be a good day to reaffirm our great confidence that we're not ever going to let that happen.
About your successor, General Louis Menetrie. He was here just not long ago as the commander of the Combined Field Army.
Yeah, he's a good soldier. He knows what he's doing. As you just recalled, he was at the Combined Field Army. I took over here on 1 June 84, and Lou left up Ouijamu 9 January 85. Mm-hmm. So we were together for quite a bit of time there. He was also here in August the 16th of 76, when we had that tragedy of the 2 officers murdered in the JSA. He was brigadier at that time. I was a brigadier at that time. I was chief of staff up at Ouijamu. He was an assistant division commander in the 2nd Division. He was actually very closely involved with the detail that went in to cut down that tree. So General Menetrie knows Korea very, very well. His wife was over here with him before, and I think that U.S. Forces Korea, Combined Command, United Nations, 8th Army, going to be well served. And another thing, he's a lot taller and a lot better looking than I am. Too. You media guys, got something to work with, but James.
Now, not to go out of what we're talking about, but one thing that we always see you with, sir, is your stick.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, a personal symbol that you carry around. What's going to happen to your stick when you leave? Just
nothing. I don't have any plans for the stick. You know, it'll wind up down there in Georgia on a table or a box or something. I don't carry the stick except when I'm in uniform. I won't be in uniform anymore, so we don't need the stick anymore. The stick's kind of it's not a, it's not a gimmick or anything really. It's just I picked it up one day and I just had it a long time, and it sort of became something that I felt comfortable with. Doesn't have any great significance. I've been given a lot of beautiful sticks over the years to replace it, but I sort of like this old stick, and we're going to keep it until the 25th of June, and then we'll just sort of put it somewhere. By the way, you know what a good word for this stick is in Korea? Pujitgangi. Pujitgangi is a poker. You poke fire with. And so my Korean friends understand that.
I'm sure after 3 years here, you've got a lot of things to say to a lot of different people. Let's start first with your soldiers.
Let's save that. Let's start.
You want to save that?
Yeah, let's.
Where would you like to start?
Let me tell you what I'd like to sort of say to everybody. I'd like to say this to the world, and particularly in some cases to some of the people in the U.S. Congress and a lot of places. I think that the Republic of Korea is a great success story for the free world, and particularly the United States of America. You know, I've said before, we drew a line in the dirt and said communism stops here. We put some teeth into that at a great cost in terms of lives and blood. And then I think we mentioned the other day in this thing, now you see what's happened. You see how far this country has come. And I don't know, I can't remember, I've talked so much, but I would just tell you in terms of good allies, our country couldn't ask for much better than the Republic of Korea. If you look at what they spend on their defense, I think we talked about this. And if you look at the way they've had their Katyusha soldiers integrated into the U.S. Army for all these years, and it goes on and on and on. Remembering the steaming jungles of Vietnam and who came and fought with us in force and well. I just draw the bottom line by saying to everybody, yes, there are going to be strains on the relationship, between these two countries as the countries, things change and countries mature and trade problems and a lot of other things like that are going to put some stress and strain on relationships. But I just would say that this country is as good ally as the United States of America has ever had. That's one thing I wanted to say, and I wanted any Korean people that are listening to hear me say that. The other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to say, in case any Korean people are listening, the great warmth and hospitality of the Korean people overwhelms me. Well, we have some anti-Americanism, yeah, we will. We got some legitimate questions and some things that need to be, but not only in times of team spirit where you see it demonstrated so wonderfully for the people, but on the day-to-day thing, people-to-people programs, all kind of Korean American associations. I'd leave out somebody if I start naming too many organizations like that, but just the way the Korean people generally treat us is wonderful. And I personally have never been treated any more warmly than by the Korean people here. And I'm not talking about just all high-level people. I'm talking about people, all the Korean people. And I guess in my initial talk when I took command on 1 June 84, I said the one thing I wanted to do is keep the flowers blooming. Most beautiful flowers anywhere in the Republic of Korea. And to keep the smile on those children's faces. Thus far, things are going pretty well in that regard.
We haven't hit on your soldiers yet, sir.
Well,
Is that something you want to save until
the
change of command? Or?
No, because all the soldiers, sailors, and airmen Marines can't be at the change of command. I just want to tell them all how deeply I love them. You know, that word is not an easy word to say. And remember, George, that this command turns over quickly. You got soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines in this command that have been here as long or longer than I have. You got some that may be watching this interview that came yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
See, but that's the great thing about the chain of command of the United States Army and the Armed Forces. It's the way we operate. Those soldiers that came yesterday are just as important to me as those that have been here as long as I have. You say, how can that be? Because that's the way we are. That's the way war is. When somebody gets hurt, some other soldier will come. Some other airman, Marine, sailor, they'll all come. And somebody will pick up whatever needs to be picked up. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that we are something. We really are something. And that's why I would like to tell all of you to walk tall and be proud. So that's what you, as I leave you, you know, I want you to do what's right every day. Be ready to go to war. Take care of each other. Take care of each other. See, this thing goes up and down. It doesn't just go down. Take care of each other. And remember that you do represent the United States of America, and you've taken such, you know, all of you have taken such good care of me. I just can't tell you how fortunate I've been. Just so very, very fortunate, so very lucky. And I'm going to miss you all so very, very much. So I just want you to do those things that you feel right about, and thank you for being the wonderful kind of human beings you are, and for the great privilege that I've had to be the commanding general here over the last 3 years.